Imagine having a condition where every time you hear a word, a taste explodes in your mouth. Or every time you see or write a number, a specific color flashes. Or every time you hear or read a word, its assigned color and taste come flowing into your mind and mouth. The condition I'm describing right now is called synesthesia. Is this a mental illness? A disorder? A disease? Or is it simply a unique condition that makes life more interesting? Now imagine having a condition where you can hear internal voices in your mind. Picture yourself living with the constant panic that someone is reading your mind and you hallucinate and have trouble focusing. This is known as schizophrenia. Let's examine synesthesia a bit. It's defined as the sensation produced in one section when a stimulus is applied to another section. One of the most common kinds of synesthesia is called grapheme, or color synesthesia. This condition assigns colors to different letters or words in their minds. According to neurologists, there is an excess interconnectivity in the visual cortex of the brain, which, put simply, means that the brain is visually overstimulated. In your brain, there are different lobes or sections dedicated to each of the 5 senses. Each lobe interacts with the other lobes. Now picture that each lobe is an anchored magnet, each one trying to communicate with the other but unable to move from its specific location. In the brain of someone with synesthesia, there is nothing keeping these magnets from roaming into the other sections of the brain. In the majority of individuals, functions like reading a book or seeing the color red are separate functions. But in the brain of someone with synesthesia, they combine and become one in the visual cortex of the brain. People with lexical, gustatory synesthesia can taste words. This means that the connection is between the auditory, visual, and taste cortexes. These connections combine and create unexpected results. So who are these people with synesthesia? Let's look at their attributes. They tend to have an awful sense of direction, but an outstanding memory. They also have been known to have more migraines than the average person. A synesthete, or one with synesthesia, tends to be a perfectionist, very creative, and a bit of an introvert. Synesthetes are also known to be talented in the visual and performing arts. On a more serious note, let's move our attention back to schizophrenia. It's defined as a long-term mental disorder of a type involving a breakdown in relation to thought, emotion, and behavior. The thoughts and feelings of those with schizophrenia are altered, just like those with synesthesia, only instead of hearing colored numbers per se, those with schizophrenia hear voices and hallucinate. So the question becomes, are synesthesia and schizophrenia really all that different? When someone finds out that one is a schizophrenic, the majority of people would try to distance themselves from that person as if they have chosen to have this illness. But when someone finds out that one has synesthesia, people are all for it, and they think it's so interesting and ask to hear more about it. Well, I am a synesthete. I have synesthesia. As noted, schizophrenia and synesthesia are comparable on quite a few levels. So I want you to answer this question in your mind and answer it honestly. Does knowing this make me more frightening to you or intriguing? For me, synesthesia is simply a part of my life. I have multiple types. First off, I have grapheme or color synesthesia. This means that I connect letters to different words and colors in my mind. To give you an example, D is a light blue, Y a subtle yellow, and the word mom is a rich blue. I also have chromesthesia. This means that sounds relate to colors. For instance, the song Dive by Ed Sheeran shows shades of blue and sea green that explode in my head. These are two of the more common kinds of synesthesia, but I also have some rarer types, such as sound to color, number form, and personification synesthesia. But I think you get the idea. But after realizing this, I found out that I had synesthesia in the 3rd grade. I was reading this book called A Mango-Shaped Space, where the main character, Mia Winchell, is a synesthete. No one at her school knows that sounds and colors have genders and numbers connected for her, and she wants to keep that a secret. The story is about how Mia manages her personal life while balancing the challenges of synesthesia. After reading this book, I realized that what was happening to me had a name. Before this moment, I assumed that everyone was just like me and saw colors and tasted numbers. Well, they're not. But after reading this, I was then able to begin my journey towards accepting my uniqueness. So I took out a sketch pad and I wrote out a list where every number corresponded to the color and gender that I saw. The list goes like this. The number 1 is white and male. 2 is light green and male. 3 is light pink female. 4, deep red, female. 5, rich blue, male, and so on and so on. I handed the list to my mom, and she took it away from me. A few days later, she came back up to me and asked me about the numbers I'd written down. She wanted to see if I was really telling the truth about having colored numbers. And I was. So after proving that I was telling the truth, then I was able to begin learning the perks and the downsides of my condition. First off, synesthesia actually helps me in school because I can separate facts, numbers, and feelings by colors and genders, and etc. It is commonly known that connecting a certain fact to a color or smell will help the brain remember that fact. Think of it as a built-in study tool. But it can also be pretty distracting. Picture this. Me sitting slumped over in my chair in pre-algebra enriched class. I have this test in front of me, and my hands are shaking, and I'm trying to figure out this problem. It has lots of exponents in it, and it's a very long problem. But in my head, I'm seeing a Mexican family celebrating at a quinceañera. The family has sombreros on, and they're dancing at the party. And when I finally snap back to reality, I realized that it was as a result of my synesthesia. This time, it was my personification synesthesia coming to the light. And it was all because of one math problem. So, as you can probably see, sometimes having this condition is more of a curse than a blessing. Because of something called lexical gustatory synesthesia, I can taste words. For instance, whenever I read or hear the word potato, depending on the size of the font, or the volume or force applied when the word is said, I can taste an awful, gross, lemony taste in the back of my mouth. So you can probably imagine how it went down when we were learning about the potato famine during English class. Although sometimes it's really not all that bad. Most words have a bland taste of paper or cardboard for me. But one of my personal favorites is the word mom, because it comes across as a deep blue color and tastes like blue raspberry. Most people have it much worse than I do, though. I remember reading this story about a man on a synesthesia website who restricted himself from ever leaving his home because every sound he heard corresponded with a strong taste, and it was all so overwhelming for him. For me, I don't find it to be completely overwhelming, just a bit distracting at times. Most of the time, people don't treat me differently after they find out that I have synesthesia. Most of the time, they say, "That's so cool, but Others act awkward and uncomfortable as if I just became a completely different person to them. But why should a mental condition keep me or anyone else from achieving what we desire in life? It shouldn't. Plenty of celebrities have synesthesia. The singers Lorde and Alessia Cara have it, as do Lady Gaga, Billy Joel, and Ed Sheeran. Right now, I'm sure you're thinking about how that's really interesting. Well, what if now I tell you that Albert Einstein's son and Edward Einstein and Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd were individuals with schizophrenia? Were people afraid of them or think them unique or brilliant even? All of these individuals show that it is possible to overcome obstacles. Each were successful despite the fact that they had to face setbacks that their peers did not have to face. We can be the generation to change this stigma that a mental illness is a disease to be feared that will ruin a person. Once this stigma is eliminated, we can then give those with unique conditions the opportunities that they deserve to accomplish what they desire. So with that, I leave the answers to these questions up to you all. Where, as a society, are we drawing the line between a mental disorder being intriguing and frightening? Will we be the generation that changes the perception of mental illness? Or will we be the one that allows this perception to remain as the status quo? Thank you.